Welcome back to Face the Nation. And Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson joins us this morning from Green Bay. Welcome to the show. Senator, the president tweeted this morning that he may shut down the government if he doesn't get border wall funding. You're the chair of the Homeland Security Committee. Should we expect a September shutdown?
Let's hope not. I think hopefully most of the appropriation bills will actually be passed. A little better prioritization of spending. So I certainly don't like playing shutdown politics.
And how damaging would that be for Republicans ahead of the November races?
I don't think it'd be helpful. So let's try and avoid it.
All right. Well, you sound more optimistic than the president does this morning. Let me ask you about the positive GDP number we saw on Friday. You heard Larry Kudlow, the president's economic director, saying this is really a reason to give your support to the president here, that the pain that American farmers are experiencing ultimately will be worth it. Do you believe that when it comes to Wisconsin's farmers?
Well, first of all, I'm far more optimistic as of some of those numbers than I was at the beginning of the week. It's really, excellent news. In the last 2 years of the Obama administration, business investment only grew at an average of 0.6%. The last 6 quarters, we've grown at an average of 7.3%, and that's just business investment that lays the foundation for future economic growth. So I think it's incredibly good numbers and very strong economy. And my concern about the trade wars and the tariffs is that it puts all that potentially at risk. But again, I was also very encouraged the fact that the president called a truce with the European president or European Commissioner president. In terms of a truce on the trade war, let's start negotiating that deal. That I would, certainly provide a united front against China, which is the main problem when it comes to trade.
Well, it's an agreement to reach a deal rather than deal itself. But Senator, it sounds
but
like
at least it's a truce.
Sure.
It's a truce.
But you're really softening the criticism that you voiced earlier this week. I mean, you sent a letter to the White House saying there's already permanent damage to the U.S. from the trade war. You said it's becoming more and more like a Soviet-era economy.
Well, certainly the $12 billion aid program, it's a Depression-era program, which certainly proves Ronald Reagan's maxim that the closest thing to eternal life here on Earth is a government program. That's not going to work in any government's hands. So, my hope is that by calling a truce, by moving forward to completing these deals, we never even have to try and implement that $12 billion program, because that would be a mess. And yeah, my responsibility is to stay in touch with my constituents and then convey the harm being done by these trade wars, by these tariffs. And the $12 billion package does show the president's listening. So President Trump is trying to shock the world trading system, because ever since World War II, America's been very generous. Our trading partners have taken advantage of our generosity. Other presidents have tried, have had some success.
So you support the $12 billion in aid, or you don't?
No. Hopefully it never gets implemented. What I'm supporting is President Trump's goal of free trade, fair trade, and reciprocal trade, and we haven't had it. He's trying to shock the system. I take the signal that he called a truce, that he at least understands there's harm being done, so he's trying to propose some way to mitigate that harm. The best way to mitigate the harm is conclude the trade deal with Europe, with Mexico, with Canada, conclude NAFTA. Then, as a united trading world, we can go to China and demand that they stop stealing our industrial secrets, our military secrets, that they start abiding by the World Trading Group rules, because China represents more than 60% of our trade deficit. They are the primary problem, and I just don't agree with the fact that if we're at war with everybody, that we're going to adequately be able to address the main problem, which is China.
Well, let's talk about the problem in Russia. I know you were in Moscow recently. You came back and you said you think that the reaction to Russian interference was overblown, and you called for a softening of sanctions. Do you still believe that?
No, what I called to reevaluate which sanctions actually work. We are not seeing a change in behavior of Russia, and that's the whole purpose.
Back?
Well, I want them directed. I think, personally, again, I'm chairman of the European Subcommittee. We've held hearings. I know how malign Russia's behavior is. I personally believe the sanctions targeted individuals, the oligarchs, the kleptocrats. That would be far more effective than the types of sanctions, for example, that reduce American businesses' influence in Russia. That's very positive influence. So all I was saying is let's target the sanctions so they actually achieve the purpose, which is change their behavior. Get them to pull out of eastern Ukraine. Right now, that's not happening. But no, listen, Russia is an unfriendly adversary. I would much rather, through positive engagement, trying to get them to change behavior, have them start moving toward no worse than a friendly rival than have them slip into the category of an enemy. So I completely agree that we should talk to Russia, but I completely agree that we need to approach Russia with real strength and resolve, and that's tightening sanctions, but the ones that actually work.
All right, Senator, thank you very much. We will be right back with a look at how those tariffs and the president's handling of the economy are seen by voters.